Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So let's talk a little about some of the mysteries and secrets in Renegades and its campaign. Needless to say, this won't be an exhaustive list of everything, as I'm sure everyone has their own individual questions, and there are still plenty of secrets out there to cover, and, well, yeah, there's a lot of lore that I've uncovered even since I started writing this script. For now, though, there are some mysteries that I wanted to provide quicker answers to, some things that you guys will have missed from the campaign, and some things that don't actually have concrete answers yet. However, I am going to go ahead and see if I can get another interview with the Destiny narrative director, Alison Lurs. Maybe she can provide some context, who knows. No guarantee on that. I've literally sent nothing in the direction of the Bungie team to organize anything along those lines. It's just something that I know I'd be keen to do, so I might as well ask. For now though, there are some quick mysteries that I can provide you some context on, and it will hopefully give you a better understanding of things within the Renegades campaign experience. Some of these are taken from questions on social media, others are there because, well, simply I knew they'd be questions. Oh, and by the way, buckle up, there will be spoilers, this is your spoiler warning. So, first of all, the Barrent Imperium. Where did they come from? This one is fairly easy to answer, as we learn from Arnor and Lodi what their origins are midway through the campaign. Arnor states that their technology is advanced beyond what the Cabal currently have within Keitel's Imperium. This includes their weapons, but it also includes the ablative armor shielding designs that they sport. Lodi later confirms that the Imperium could have been assisted by one of the members of the Nine, thus helping to confirm Drifter's theory of the exact same notion. In particular, he notes that any of the Nine would have been able to use time dilation in order to ensure that the Imperium had more time to develop. Slowing down time is something that maybe we could have considered that, yeah, the Nine understood how to use, but it's good to see it confirmed here. The extent of their time shenaniganery is now becoming a little bit wider and better known. All of this levels with what we learned from Arnor in the first mission, when she recognized the ablative armor designs of the Barrent Imperium as a completed version of theoretical designs from Keitel's Cabal. Later, she also found records on their leader, Premier Lume. Prior to his appearance within the Barrent Imperium's hierarchy, there was a young Brachus Lume who was a part of Keitel's ascendancy. He supposedly made off with Imperium technology a few years back, and since then he has grown substantially in both size and age. In fact, he's aged far faster than he should have if he was following the normal laws of time, hence more evidence of the Imperium having access to the Nine. Next up, I saw a lot of you asking about the Tharsis Reformation Vex and how they're independent. It's a fair question given that this is a relatively new phenomenon in Destiny. The short version is that this relates back to episode Echoes, where the independent Vex really begin. Back then, the Conductor, aka Maya Sundaresh, was able to find an echo of the Witness and the Traveler. She began using this to take control of the Vex on Nessus, thus creating a whole new sub-faction called the Nessian Schism, or the Choral Vex. These Vex were independent from this moment on, as they were disconnected from the wider Vex collective and the wills of the Axis minds that occupy the hierarchy's apex. That being said, Maya's overwhelming power was still enough to control them and compel them to follow her commands. Eventually, Maya would travel to find the member of the Nine tied in with Earth, 3, in order to reunite herself with a perfect version of her wife, Chioma Essie. Maya would demand that 3 do the impossible and trade the places of Earth in this time when she was speaking to it with Earth from the Golden Age. The Nine are able to manipulate time, but they're only able to pull objects and people through time forward, not backwards. Making a trade like this was impossible. But Maya Sundaresh didn't care. When 3 was unable to carry out such a request, Maya reacted by killing it. This was such a devastating moment that it kicks off the entire Fate saga, but it also actually damaged Maya's echo, and from this moment onwards, she's begun to lose control of her collective of Vex. Individual Vex were being shed from the Nessian Schism one by one, as Maya was losing control, and connection with the Echo. And, alone and afraid, these Vex would slowly begin to band together, until there were some that made their way to Tharsis. With their individuality retained and independence gained from Maya, these Vex began to chase the thrills and pleasures of personal experience. They began to engage in crime and gambling. They even began to express an interest in fashion and developed their own aesthetic tastes. Such Vex are a new phenomenon, but they also have been developing in the background since episode Echoes about a year and a half ago. And of course, eventually under leadership of a crime boss, the Syndicate of Tharsis Reformation was born. Next up, I think it's worth explaining a little bit more about Dredgen Bale, and don't worry, we're going to get a full, detailed YouTube video on this man. He's just that important. He's our new antagonist in this expansion. He's a Dredgen, which is essentially a Dark Guardian. In particular, they undergo a ritual involving Dark Hive magic called the Unmaking. In the process of doing this, they claim a new title, and also claim a weapon for themselves. This is a weapon of sorrow, and these are more specifically also made in the Unmaking. They are human implements of war that express humanity's mastery of the discipline, that have then been corrupted by hive magic, and turned into weapons with a sinister purpose. And yes, Dredgen Bale's lightsaber, or Praxic Blade, is absolutely his weapon of sorrow. Not traditional, given that the first of them was a thorn. But then again, who's to say that Bale's Praxic Blade also isn't something rather devastating? Bale's philosophy is bound in the idea that the Guardians are essentially tyrants by the very nature of their immortal existence. They can't die unless they're actively killed and their ghost is killed with them, and yet they rule humanity from the Lost City. In a certain sense, he's right, because we are unelected and we do rule this city, but his solution isn't to call for elections or to implement a governmental transition or to establish checks and balances on Guardian power and overreach. Instead, it's just to kill all the Guardians and their ghosts. Not great for us, to be honest. Bale has been made even more dangerous because he's been empowered by a member of the Nine. In particular, Six, the member of the Nine who is tied in with the orbit of Saturn. Six made a sort of background appearance in Heresy, and has definitely been controlling some of the Taken throughout the system. It somehow learned how to use sword logic, and has also anointed Bale as an alternate version of the weapon to us. In all fairness, this wasn't just Six, it was all of the outer orbits. This includes 5, which is Jupiter, 6, which is Saturn, 7, which is Uranus, and 8, which is Neptune. But what is a weapon, and why are they the opposite of everything? Well, this goes over some stuff from Edge of Fate, but if you missed it and you're coming back with Renegades, this is kind of crucial information. Essentially, we were chosen as the weapon of the Nine from the very beginning, and we've always been destined to walk our path. However, whilst most of the Nine voted for us to become the weapon, at the council where this vote was undertaken by all the planetary minds, 5 and 6, aka Jupiter and Saturn, voted against us becoming the weapon. This is based in no small part on the animosity that 6 feels toward us, and I won't get into that here, but suffice to say, it has ancient beef with humanity and any living thing in the solar system. Bale may have been reforged into 6's new weapon, but the cost has been pretty staggering. Bale was never meant to be a weapon, and he was also never meant to be a vessel for one of the Nine in the same way that Lodi was, by being their emissary. Bale is in near constant pain, on account of 6 having transmuted parts of him. Parts of his face, and even his entire liver, have been replaced with metal. Needless to say, that can't be good for your long-term health. During the campaign, we also see Dredgen Bale's hand getting shot off. In the process, it's also then revealed that he is, in fact, not a light bearer. He was just a mortal man. Granted, he was the son of the founder of Tex Mechanica, and he therefore has a ton of wealth and connections, but regardless, this is a normal dude who decided to take up the rank of Dredgen. That implies that he was able to learn the powers of darkness either from Six or on his own. Regardless of how it's done, he's a powerful combatant with them. Although Arnor does notice within the first few moments of their encounter that his technique is undisciplined and unrefined. Moving back to all of this though, yes, Bale has lost his hand, and that cannot be good. I also don't think that there is a chance of him immediately healing this, given that, well, I mean, the spider has been around for years and he certainly hasn't gotten special treatment. Bale, being a normal man, presents some pretty stark challenges, not least of which is, how do you replace his hand? I imagine there's a chance that Six has already rebuilt him one out of metal, but then again, is that really what you want for the rest of your life? I don't know. And to be frank about it, this is a valid question to say the rest of your life in, because again, Bale isn't a light bearer. He gets one life, and he's already used it to a pretty remarkable extreme. However, I think one of the biggest things that we see within Renegades is simply the talk at the end of the story about our ultimate objective of binding the Nine. You see, this is something that's brought up by Lodi at the end of the campaign. He brings it to us as a revelation in the post-campaign story missions, and it talks about how the Nine can potentially be bound into physical bodies. This traps them and their perspective to within the third dimension. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. All of this is a way of saying that we're able to cut them off from their godhood and their ability to see into the future and know it definitively. Thus, the balance of fate is restored. However, there's got to be a bit more to it, because this still doesn't get us any closer to the inevitably questionable answer of how do we fix Earth. I want everyone to just remember, a certain portion of the Andes Mountains has turned to copper. The Andes. That is a mountain range that stretches all the way down South America. That is taller than the United States by a certain dramatic factor. The changes on Earth are pretty dramatic, and yes, we will probably see more of them in the future. And should we follow up on what Lodi has learned, then we'll be binding gods into mortal vessels, bodies that ultimately will be able to control them and prevent them from using their godlike powers. This means that the future of the Fate Saga is probably going to involve us slowly finding 8 or 9 powerful individuals that can potentially act as vessels for the Nine, and when we find each one of them, we can potentially use them to bind each of the Celestials in place. And of course, there are already interesting candidates for such individuals. For example, given that he's already hosted him, I think Dredgen Bale might be the perfect candidate for being the vessel of Six. Speaking of Six, he is also described as being closely related to the Lord of Every Nothing, and there's also mention of the possibility that Six is in fact the Alchemist. However, for these points, I wanted to discuss them in more nuance and detail, so they'll have their individual videos. That being said though, I don't think you should jump to the easiest conclusion. Oftentimes it is not the thing that is staring you in the face that provides the answer. I mean, sometimes it is, but you get my point. And finally, I think we should talk about the Nightfall weapon attack. I should stress that this is a really rudimentary understanding of how this weapon works, but suffice to say it is capable of targeting both light and darkness, and in particular, a paracausal soul which you will be able to root out and immediately extract from anyone that is caught in its blast radius. A dead warlock corpse on Tharsis Junction confirms this as much based on our observations. Lodi describes it as if the Nine reached out of the fourth dimension, grabbed the gas knob and turned it off. We know specifically that the eclipse energy of the Nightfall weapon is what powers the core of the Nightfall station, and that this core was gifted to Dredgen Bale and the Barant Imperium by the outer orbits of the Nine to accomplish its deadly purpose. This has some pretty scary, clear implications for the power of the Nine generally, as it seems to imply that they can indeed, under the right circumstances, exploit a form of energy that can snuff out paracausality itself. Eris notes that such eclipse powers came from beyond our dimension, and therefore it's likely that it originates from the Nine themselves. Anyway, I know this was a quicker video, but I wanted to get this out here so I could answer some of your burning questions. Don't worry, we have dedicated long-form content on the way regarding a few important characters. That being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, and also remember to hit the hype button, which is apparently a thing you can do. Don't forget to subscribe for more content from universes near and far. But, as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.